I'm back. It's Friday, and Friday is the day for Jess Franco movies. Today, I'm doing the backup, I guess the B side of this double feature, the Red Lips double feature, and that is Kiss Me Monster. 1969, basically shot in 67, the same time as Two Undercover Angels. This is the third and final Red Lips spy spoof that Franco did in the 60s. And it's not a sequel. These films are all independent of each other. It just happens to be a fact that these two films were shot back to back with basically the same locations and the same actors and actresses. And it actually represents the first time Franco got funding for a film, but shot two films for expediency's sake and basically to satisfy himself. This is the first example of that, and I think the Kiss Me Monster film is, of the two, the Jess Franco film. The first is a straight up spy spoof of the Avengers, which I talked about last week. But Kiss Me Monster has a lot more of the surreal strangeness and Franco elements that we come to know and love. And I think that's because he probably got funding for Two Undercover Angels and then quickly shot his film using the same staff and resources. And you see a lot of Franco type elements in Kiss Me Monster. It just permeates the film. This is a Blue Underground release, by the way, that has each film has, as an extra, very engaging and interesting interviews with Franco. The one both of them are like 20 minutes long. The Kiss Me Monster one is called Franco Tangents. And he really doesn't spend a whole lot of time talking about Kiss Me Monster. What he does talk about is still very interesting. He talks about his opinion of LSD in the 60s and people that use LSD, what defines a porn film. It's crazy stuff. And then he talks about his experiences with Treasure Island, directing Treasure Island, the Orson Welles film. So Kiss Me Monster is yet another film with Rosanna Yanni and Janine Renaud, who come back as the Red Lips spy duo. This time, though, they're looking for a serum, essentially a serum that can create artificial supermen. But the problem with it is, so are about four other different groups, disparate, a cacophony of different groups. This is where it gets very Franco-ish, in a good way. The first group is Albinons. They're called Albinons. They're a bunch of men that wear these black hoods that look like they're kind of a KKK rejects. They're willing to pay these girls $80,000 for the serum. Then you got Dr. Bertrand, who was the one that created the serum. He's been in jail. He's getting out of jail. He's looking for the serum. You got a lesbian group that hates men that want to create their own super women to get rid of men. At one point they kidnap Janine Renaud and try to utilize her. They're looking for the serum. And then you get this pervy gay couple, which it's pretty obvious that they're gay, but obviously this was shot in the 60s. And it's not clear, but they are. I mean, they kind of cackle at each other like an old married couple. And then let's see, this group there. So their idea is they're going to get the serum to create these muscle men that wear these, and they've already created a couple that have these like muscle guys with the tight red pants. They have a penchant also for chaining up women and whipping them with the kind of a woman in chains concept. That's straight classic Franco. It's like, where is all this coming from? Bizarre stuff. Franco is really pushing, I think he's pushing the boundaries of sexual propriety in this film, but in a good way. And certainly he's thumbing his nose at the censors and the Spanish government and the people that think he's a dangerous individual as a director. There's no doubt about it. A movie like this, he's clearly trying to send a message. It's great fun, I think, for those that are Euro trash connoisseurs, uh, that aren't too worried about structure or coherence. I mean, if you're a stickler for a coherent plot, and structure, then you're probably going to be frustrated. But if you're that way, my guess is you're going to be frustrated by many of Franco's films. So that's just a word to the wise there. The film could have benefited more from a script scrubbing. I mean, I think they if they'd have had the time to maybe work on the structure and the plot and the coherency, it would have helped it. But it doesn't hurt it, in my opinion. It's a very entertaining and engaging film with some classic Franco shots. No matter what you think of his films, there's always one or two moments of inspiration in each film that make it and define it as, hey, this guy's pretty good at what he does. In this film, there's a couple scenes. One, there's these huge Dutch windmills, and part of the clue that the girls need to solve where the serum is basically they've got to turn this Dutch windmill certain different directions to solve the clues. It's beautifully shot, very fascinating to look at, and classic Franco. The other shot in this film that's classic Franco is the girls are swimming in this beautiful seaside Mediterranean pool. They've run into a guy that's kind of trying to help them find the serum, but he's actually a crook that wants to steal the serum and just stiff the girls, but they don't know that at this point in the movie. Anyway, they're laying next to the beach and they form this inverted cross with their bodies, and it's another interesting shot. And the religious connotation, or the anti-religious connotation, I think, is another not so subtle thumbing of the nose at the political and religious structures in Spain at the time. In my opinion, maybe I'm stretching it, interpreting too much, but that's what I saw. What else have we got? There is Carolyn Ravage, who is the stepdaughter. I forgot to mention this. That Carolyn Ravage is the stepdaughter of Franco's first marriage. She's got a little cameo. She's at this Hotel Victoria, and the girls are showing up at this hotel, and she's kind of on the staircase, and she kind of gives them a warning about, if you get too close to some of this stuff, people are getting bumped off. So she has a little cameo. And as well as Franco, he has a cameo as a mystery man. There's a number of set pieces where you've got individuals that are trying to convey information to the girls, and they get immediately killed. I mean, maybe they walk up, introduce themselves, start to even make a comment, and they get knifed in the back, which I think is just a form of black comedy in itself, spoofing the Avengers TV show. But in this case, Franco he's one of these mystery men, and he's just getting ready to tell them something important, having just met them, by the way, and boom, knife in the back. And of course, the black comedy part is that the girls kind of show just a level of indifference to all these proceedings, just kind of go about their way. The funniest scene, black comedy scene, is one of the early scenes. There's a messenger boy. He shows up and he hands these girls a sheet of music with notes and things and important information about this serum. Of course, he gets stabbed in the back. What does the girls do? Janine grabs a sheet of paper from him as he's falling down onto the ground and proceeds to play a musical riff on a guitar. while the guy's laying there with a knife in his back. I mean, that's classic black comedy, spoofing the Avengers TV show. That kind of indifference, I think, is my opinion. It's really kind of focused on not just spoofing a spy movie, but the Avengers TV show specifically. The music in this, there's a brass horns. It's a jazz combination along with some kind of period 60s music. There's the American cut, the guy named Jerry Van Hooven, I believe is his name, Ruin, Rooyen, did quite a bit of the music for this, as well as Daniel White. I think he had a little bit of a input into it as well. There's a set piece, as you would expect with any Franco film. There's obviously a nightclub scene at the Flamingo Club where the girls are actually posed as strippers, where Renaud actually strips down and shows off her boobs. Rosanna Yanni, unfortunately, doesn't take it all off, but she gets down to her nighties or underwear and bra, but we don't see any more than that. But anyway, besides being spies, they're posing as strippers. But in the middle of all this, you get this dance scene at this club Flamingo, and Franco just goes nuts with the camera. He's zooming in, and it's not bad zooming. He's zooming in at weird angles of all these girls dancing, kind of 60s gyrations, zooming in on their exposed torsos and belly buttons and God knows what. It's typical classic Franco. I mean, that's a classic scene. There's also a piece here where they've taken scenes from Two Undercover Angels, specifically the sexy brunette that was kind of gyrating on the ground on the stage floor. She's got a brief, it looks like the same scenes that they've kind of cut her into this as well. She's wearing this black leotard with cutout circles on it, and she's kind of gyrating on the floor. That scene was in Two Undercover Angels, and it appears in this film as well. Great film. I mean, it's a fun film. If you're gonna, just don't get hung up on the coherence and the structure, and you'll be fine. It's got all the classic Franco elements that Two Undercover Angels didn't have thrown in here. And I think that's why the film kind of was one of those that the critics panned, because it is confusing. It's as is the case with many Franco films, that confusion can frustrate people. I didn't find it frustrating. I found it immensely satisfying and interesting. But I'm a Franco and Euro trash fan, so. The final thing I think to talk about is the film was shot in Murcia, Spain, the region of Murcia, which is apparently it's kind of a seaside right on the Mediterranean. Really beautiful settings. I mean, the on-set locations for this film are just some serious eye candy. Beautiful to look at. At any rate, I can definitely recommend, of the two films, certainly my favorite is Kiss Me Monster, which from a critic standpoint, most critics would suggest the opposite, that Kiss Me Monster was a train wreck and the other film was a better film, but I actually think the opposite. So I'll leave that for you to decide, but I do recommend this release, and I think you can pick it up for $15-16. You be the judge of which one you like the best. I like them both, but I prefer Kiss Me Monster. Well, that will wrap up another Franco Friday, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks.